Today's episode of Filmmaker U is brought to you by our sponsors OWC. Go to owcdigital.com for all your filmmaking and computer needs. And it's also brought to you by our other sponsors, AJA. Make sure to check out aja.com so that you can see how they can help you in your post-production needs. Hi, I'm Gordon Brickell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com, or of course follow us on Twitter at filmmaker_u. Every week we interview film professionals to discuss their work, and this week I'm joined by composer Johannes Ringen, whose work includes The Burning Sea, The Girl from Oslo, and more recently Troll, the new feature film on Netflix. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
I'm wondering can you give us a bit of background on troll history in Norway? Because they have there's the film Troll Hunter, there's this film, and it seems to play a lot in stories. So what is the background of this? Why is it so connected to Norway?
Oh yeah, sure. Everyone in Norway knows about trolls. There's even a lullaby about trolls, and it's such a huge part of the culture. And it's funny that you're asking, because every now and then people ask about trolls, and there was someone who asked about where do Norwegians buy trolls, like the real trolls, because we're having souvenirs and everything. And yeah. So that's always been a thing. It's so common, and it's such a huge part of the culture that I'm a little blind to it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it was about time that there was a sort of a action movie about trolls.
Yeah. Well, and I think Troll Hunter was so good. I was excited for this one.
Oh, it's fantastic. Troll Hunter. It's awesome.
I'm going to interrupt this interview for 1 second. We want to thank PixelView, one of our sponsors. They're a streaming solution for filmmakers. PixelView lets you stream your work to remote clients for easy collaboration, and it works with both on-set teams and post-production teams. With built-in video chat, you can discuss and make changes in real time and stream directly from your editing software. Or you can use the hardware encoder to stream from DaVinci Resolve or the camera on set. See the promo code and the link in the video description below. So because it's so embedded in the culture, did you rely on traditional Norwegian instruments and things like that, or did you or traditional sounds?
Oh, so Roar, the director, he's been doing a lot of sort of action-y movies before. He's done the Tomb Raider and The Wave. So he was really into the sort of the big action-y orchestral score. So I tried out a couple of smaller things, but I got the thumbs down. So it was fairly decided upon that it was going to be big and orchestral. So the question was, how can we sort of weave some Norwegian folk things into this? So there's obviously the song that everyone knows, the Hall of the Mountain King, the do 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 do. And it's been used in movies before, but I don't know if it's been used that much about troll, because the Mountain King, like in the story, that's a troll. So we use that as a starting point, harmonically. There's a dee 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 dee. So we snuck small nuggets from the Mountain King into the score, tone wise, and it's funny because there was a radio program. I was not invited, but they had analyzed the whole score and looking for pieces from the Mountain King. And they had done a really good job. So everything that when there's a troll involved, there are small hints of the Mountain King there. And there's also
Sorry, I was gonna say, so were the small hints tonal shifts or tonal following that progression, or was it the particular sounds? How did you hide it in there?
Yeah, it was the progression, and the piece is written in 1875, so it's up for grabs, like it's public domain. So we knew that we wouldn't run into any trouble. So there are there are ostinatos going, which have some sort of the same movement as that melody. And there are some brass stabs. Eduard, the director, he is a huge fan of big brass. So we have that in there as well. And yeah, it's if you listen closely, you can hear some hints here and there. And I don't know if in what way it contributes to the troll sound, but at least I know that some people will have fun like they did in the radio program to sort of like decode the score and try to find small pieces of the Mountain King in there. And then there's the instrument side of it. There are some traditional Norwegian instruments as well. There's a nyckelharpa, which is, it reminds me a little bit about hurdy-gurdy, if you know that sound.
No,
It sounds like a fiddle, but a little different.
Okay.
And it's a very Nordic sound. So everything, when there's about the troll and it's smaller and more intimate scene, where it wouldn't be appropriate to have like huge brass and the sort of like the full scale orchestra. So it gave us a great tool to sort of like sneak something Nordic into there. So yeah, I think that's the two things that we did to make it unique and make it more Nordic, to have those traditional instruments and to have sort of the hints to the Mountain King piece.
Now, I have a weird question, and I don't even know if this is an answerable question, but like when I think about music, when I talk to people about music, a lot of times people talk about it in like textures, or in like they like trying to explain it to people is sort of like kind of a tricky thing, without using examples, sort of like what you were saying with the Mountain King. So, but like when I think about the Scandinavian countries or like Canada or Russia, it's always up far north and it has like that cold sort of, I guess, feeling around it. So when you were making the music, were you trying to create a sense of like temperature or coldness to it, or?
Oh, that's a brilliant question. And we actually did that because the string players, they if we think about this, the sort of the classical sound, which is very articulate and pristine in a way, I did a lot of work with the texture and like the way they were playing on their strings, like the string players. If you play like further down the fingerboard, you get more sort of like a frozen sound. So there's a lot of that in there. Yeah. And the reason why we did our own take on the Mountain King. There's a spoiler alert. There's a piece where it's like played out full, the Mountain King piece, and we made it darker and heavier because that was our intention as well. It needed to be a little darker than the original Mountain King piece. So I don't know if that was an answer to your question.
No, it's because it's always interesting to me that like because music evokes feeling in people, right? So I'm always interested if like there's a way of getting people to feel like cold through the music, or a way to make them feel a particular way. It's always interesting to hear. Now, you said it was done with, like, you talked about doing this with an orchestral sound. Now, when I've worked with composers, I'm usually on really low budget, so their orchestra is usually a synthesizer. Did you get a full orchestra, or were you working on a synthesizer?
Yeah, we we went to Prague and recorded it with an orchestra.
Wow.
So that's kind of necessary to do these things, to have them play a little differently, because during the recording session you can give instructions and you can instruct the players to play to use their bow a little differently, to play and it's so much about feeling. So it was really nice to have the director there with me, so he could sort of approve, because it can really sound quite differently, like if you play it super straight and if you do all this sort of like textural things. So yeah, it's so great to have him with me. So if I the worst thing would be to go back to Norway and have everything recorded and what is this? This is not, this is wrong. So yeah.
Well, and I think I always think back to, like, I had to do some ADR years ago, and
Yeah.
for whatever reason, the director was in LA and we were in Toronto, and it was
Right.
like he was on the phone. I'm like, how are you hearing this properly? Because you're just hearing the delivery, but it was very, very weird.
Yeah.
So when you get into like the orchestra, were you able to choose? Because I feel like the rooms play such an important part in the recording and the sound. So were you able to go through and figure out like a particular studio that you wanted, or a particular room within the studio, or was that sort of decided for you?
To be honest with you, this was during the summer, and the the booking and the availability and everything, we sort of ended up in Prague. Oh, we were perfectly happy to record there. It turned out awesome, and but it was not like a very conscious decision. I'm sure that we could get what we wanted from many other studios as well, but the players in Prague, they played beautifully and knocked it off, so, out of the park. So it was great, really.
So how would you describe, like, if someone was coming to this project, how would you describe the sound to them or the music to them?
I would describe it as a traditional action score with Nordic folk influences. That's that's what we went for. That is the concept for the score.
When you were working on this project, where did you go to for inspiration? Like, you mentioned the Mountain King, but were there other songs or, art movements that you sort of turned to?
No, the Mountain King was sort of the main influence, really. And you know, when you're scoring movies, you have a limited attention from the audience because there's a lot of things going on. So you have to make the concepts small enough to make sense. If you try to put too much into there, I don't think the audience will get a sense of the concept at all. So because, you know, like the requirements of the movie, it's always about the movie. It will change, yeah. So I feel that you need to have like a really clear and concise concept for it to make sense.
Was there a particular piece of the score that was really tricky to figure out, or difficult for you to figure out, but you were really pleased with the outcome once you got it figured out?
Yeah, the opening was the really the hardest part, because they had temped it. They had put a temp placeholder track in there, which was I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but the editors, they had put the opening track from Avengers. That was the temp track. So that's it's you know, you try to make sense what, because the temp track, it's supposed to say something, and it's kind of hard to make sense of the Avengers track. But but then you have these discussions and you try to figure out things, and I think it turned out really nicely at the end. And we knew that, you know, when you have the opening of a movie, that's when you really have the chance to showcase something from the score. So we did the nyckelharpa, the folk instruments. We made it like really prominent in there, and the intention is to sort of, you know, there are a lot of movies that what you remember is what's in the beginning and at the end. So that's always a nice place to put some featured instruments in.
I feel like the editors saw that you worked on Age of Ultron and were like, "Oh, he'll be fine with it." Like, there you go. Don't worry about it. So how do you get directors to get past temp love then? Because I feel like a lot of directors are like, "Oh, that temp score is great," and you have to get past it.
Well, that was really easy in this case, because I don't think the director, after all, he didn't love it that much either. So it turned out nicely at the end. But when I saw it for the first time, I was, what am I gonna do here? And if you see the movie and you watch the opening, you would not think that it was the Avengers theme that it was cut to, because it's very, very different. Yeah. But the temp love thing, that's always a tricky part. I feel a really good strategy is if you work really good with the concept. So everyone is on board with this. You have a sort of the sound world, and in this particular movie, we have the nyckelharpa, the folk instrument, and we have some thoughts about the harmonies and everything. So you have this argument of let's make this our own. I feel that is a really good thing, but it requires that you've done like solid work beforehand. So there is a concept, and then I find that most directors really like that we're doing our own thing. So there were no hard temp tracks in this movie, luckily.
So I have one last question for you. What would you say is your favorite guilty pleasure film to watch or TV show to watch?
Oh. It's so rough to be put on the spot like this, but I think it's Back to the Future. Is that an okay
we'll accept it,
answer?
Yeah.
Okay. It's fantastic for real though.
Yeah. Did you watch obviously you've probably seen the second and third one. So do you like them all, or because some people are like, oh, I'm not a fan of the second or the third one?
Yeah. I think the first one is the best.
Yeah.
And it you know, like I really loved it when I was a kid, and it's so cool when you watch these movies and they're cool when you watch them again.
Yeah.
So many movies you watch them and they're like, this is. But I really think that it's sort of like stood the test of time.
Yeah, for sure.
Of course, it's from the 80s. But it's really fun to watch still.
Yeah. Well, it's so great, and they'll never make another one apparently because Robert Zemeckis won't let the rights go, and says he doesn't want any more made. So we won't see any reboots, which is good.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Do you have what is your favorite?
Oh, I have so many. I love to watch bad movies, so like The Room and those types of movies.
Right.
Those are great. In terms of just ridiculousness. I also love reality shows, just enjoying a good reality show to decompress.
Nice.
But thank you so much for letting me interview you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that's it for this week, everyone. Make sure to check us out at filmmakeru.com, or of course on Twitter at filmmaker_u. I'm Gordon Brickell. Thanks for watching. Today's episode of Filmmaker U is brought to you by our sponsors, OWC. Go to owcdigital.com for all your filmmaking and computer needs. And it's also brought to you by our other sponsors, AJA. Make sure to check out aja.com so that you can see how they can help you in your post-production needs.